when the U.S. Surgeon General wanted warning labels on cigarettes? Well, these days, the Surgeon General is pushing for warnings on social media platforms. Dr. Vivek Murthy announced yesterday he believes that social media is associated with significant enough mental health harms for adolescents that it is justified putting warning labels on the product. Now, Murthy is receiving support from two senators, Democrat Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut and also Republican of Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. Both are vocal advocates for policing social media to supposedly protect children online.
The two senators said in a statement, "We are pleased that the Surgeon General, America's top doctor, continues to bring attention to the harmful impact that social media has on our children. The warning label would require congressional approval." Here, Murthy was talking about his push for the warning label on the Today Show.
Why do you think a warning label would actually work? I mean, we think of smoking labels, yet people still smoke.
Well, Savannah, I'm really glad you asked. And let me just first say, parents are struggling all over the country. I've spent time with thousands of parents over the last few years all over America. And the number one question they often ask me about is social media. They want to know, is this safe for my kids? How should I manage it? And what the data is telling us, Savannah, is not only have companies not demonstrated that their platforms are safe for kids, but there's growing evidence of harm. It shows us, in fact, that when adolescents spend more than 3 hours a day on social media, we're seeing an association with a doubling of risk of anxiety and depression symptoms. And the average amount of use per day among adolescents is nearly 5 hours. So that's deeply concerning to me, not just as Surgeon General, but as a parent myself. Now, a warning label would help parents to understand these risks.
Some are not responding to this news well. One ex-user wrote, "If we keep the youth off of social media and corporations and others that manipulate them, they cannot be sued. And truthful information cannot be censored as it has been through mainstream media and social media now. Maybe we should ban the cell phone altogether. Do we really know its damages to our health?"
I utterly oppose this. I think this is a total moral panic. It is the harms associated with social media compared to the harms associated with cigarette smoke. Cigarettes, lung cancer has killed, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions,
if not millions,
of people over the decades. Okay, fine. How many people has social media credibly killed? Is there anyone? They'll say, teens have been bullied on social media.
Higher suicide risks. Yeah.
Teens have been bullied in real life. School is a bullying experience for many young people. We haven't banned school.
I certainly remember that.
Right. It hasn't. There's no evidence bullying and harassment for teenagers has gotten worse. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's clearly improved. I was a young man once. You were a young man once. It used to be explicit physical violence for young men involved in school. There's a lot of zero tolerance for that now. I would never make the case that social media is harmless and there are no harms associated with it. I think excessively doing anything can be bad for you, and I totally support parents putting limits on how much exposure their kids to have to social media. I think schools should put limits on how much there's social media in the schools. I think yes, there should not be phones in the classrooms, just like there shouldn't be a Nintendo Switch in the classroom. I don't know. It's not anywhere. People say oh, it's distracting. Well, if you're doing something,
a game system, a laptop,
right? It doesn't make sense to me.
An iPad.
So fine, but these specific harms about concerns about harms to children have not been very exhaustively litigated in the social psychology research. I've done debates on this subject with Jonathan Haidt, who's the leading kind of scholar on this. Obviously, he's a very smart man, and he has a lot of profound concerns, and he's assembled research to support that. I'm not at all persuaded by looking at it. There's, for everyone that says there are harms here, there's research not finding specific harms for people who use it reasonably. There's some research finding that kids who are never using social media are the most depressed of all.
Yeah, because they're not included in
anything. Talk to their friends. So I just don't think this should be at the level yet of government decision making at all. I would leave it to individual parents and families. Now, I don't know what a warning label is.
Yeah, how does it? Is it like a pop-up every time you open the app? This just reminds me of Michael Bloomberg in The Big Gulp when he tried to ban the Big Gulp in New York.
Exactly.
The quintessential
Moral
nanny
panic,
state, government intrusion. And look, I'm a liberal, so I'm usually a fan of the government. But here, this is where parents need to come into play. This is where the community needs to come in and actually be the ones to set the rules and how we're going to go about doing things. I don't think the government coming in and saying we're going to put warning signs. What's next? Are they going to tell us how many hours a day we can use it? Are they going to regulate the actual usage of it?
I mean, it's speech also.
Absolutely.
Unlike cigarettes, which are
Just
not
a
a speech-related
recreational
product, unless you're
activity.
expanding the First Amendment very strongly, which I always support doing. The First Amendment is the way we libertarians thwart all regulation because the First Amendment is robustly protected. But social media is clearly a speech-related product.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court previously has declined to put any very few limits, except specifically in schools. They've generally said, like, you can still sell violent video games to kids. That ban got struck down. I don't see how this would be any different. In terms of her question to Murthy, and also I read his op-ed in the New York Times, and it was basically what he's saying is that, well, I can't yet prove that this product is completely safe, so we're going to put a warning label on it. Not that I know it's very dangerous, and here are the reasons. Which was the case of smoking. So it's like, is now the government going to warn us that everything they don't know is explicitly safe could be dangerous? What use is that? Why should they do that? The warning labels on cigarettes were one part of a multifaceted campaign to convince people they were unhealthy, which included advertising and which included, most importantly, slowly taxing to death cigarettes.
And
that's why they're not
the settlements from the
settlements, the lawsuits, the financial pressure is where we've gotten to that. Yeah, if the government started like charging you a sin tax on social media use would go down. I don't want to give.
Yeah, I was going to say now you're giving them ideas. I never thought I would use this phrase. This is virtue signaling.
It is.
This is the epitome of virtue signaling from the government. I think this is an attempt to appease kind of the suburban mom demographics. They're worried. But at the end of the day, the only people who are really going to be able to deal with this are parents. This isn't something that the government can step in and do. Parents have to do their job. Yeah, and I know, a lot of people watching probably do have questions about the impact to kids. They don't think it's so clear-cut. And I appreciate that all, but this is, I'm very ideologically in favor of free speech. A lot of our viewers are as well. And, just think about what if the government said, well, we've decided, the YouTube-based news program, Rise, or just YouTube news in general, harmful to kids, so we're going to put a warning label on that. We would all recognize that as obvious censorship. So this is a little bit far removed from that because they're not saying it to a specific platform or specific kind of content, but how different is it? And would that be the next step if they got away with it? So I would encourage everyone to think about that. I would.
More Rising right after this.